Welcome to Explore This, the podcast where we take a peek into the hearts and minds of explorers everywhere and learn what it takes to dedicate your life towards creating a better planet. In our first season, we focus on African explorers and feature scientists, historians, ecologists, journalists, and other experts from across the continent. I am your host, Cornelius Okello.
And I'm your co-host, Gautam Shah.
Our guest today is Ndimuh Bertrand Shancho, a passionate Cameroonian conservationist, National Geographic explorer, and founder of The Voice of Nature, also known as VONAT.
VONAT is a grassroots conservation organization dedicated to conserving endangered species, restoring degraded landscapes, and strengthening community resilience to climate change in Cameroon. VONAT's work spans some of Cameroon's most ecologically important yet threatened areas, including Mount Cameroon, Mount Lonako, and other landscapes across the southwest.
Through community-led initiatives, Ndimuh and his team are helping local communities protect biodiversity, regenerate forests and soils, and adapt to the growing impacts of climate change, proving that conservation thrives when communities lead the way. Thank you very much for joining us today, Ndimuh. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, it's a great delight to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Let us start from the very beginning. Can you tell us some of your earliest, fondest memories of growing up in your village in Cameroon?
All right, Cornelius. It's always really a sweet reminiscence when I have to go back to my early childhood days. I actually grew up in a village in the northwest region of Cameroon known as Bambalang. And one key fun thing I can think about is my early days relationship with nature and environment started unfriendly and later turned friendly. Unfriendly because it was like an everyday routine where my grandmother and mother will put me in charge of sending monkeys and other animals away from eating our groundnut and corn in the farm because I grew up in a typical agrarian environment where we depended predominantly on agriculture for our livelihood. So there were a lot of monkeys, chimpanzees, and other animal species that used to come and eat our groundnut and eat corn from the farm. So I was given the responsibility in my early childhood days to always go as early as 5:30 a.m. to send them away from eating groundnut. So that is how my relationship with nature started. And as I went sending them away, I started enjoying the agility, how they were hovering from one branch on the tree to another branch, and the motivation changed from protecting our source of livelihood to actually just enjoying seeing the animals hover from one tree to another, move across the forest, vocalizing. I started just enjoying it, and I would then get up very early in the morning and be the first person to start going down closer to the forests where our farms were located, just adjacent the forest. And a parent will say, this is a duty-conscious child. This is a responsible child. But they never knew that the motivation long switched from just protecting our source of livelihood to actually just enjoying myself and enjoying the animals as they were moving across the tree. So I think that is the first experience I can say I had with nature. Of course, there were other species early those days that didn't really make sense to me. Like you have the frogs. They used to just move around and we didn't like them. They would just hop into our house and we'll push them away. What kind of animal is this? So it didn't really make sense to us. And also in the early childhood days, every little child will have a catapult where you have to shoot the birds and stuff. So I also had my own little catapult. It was like just fun time to see who can be the best child at sighting. You can sight a bird and shoot. It will mean that you are very good at sighting, and it was fun. So the real idea about conservation didn't occur to me at the early age. So I can say that is an overview of my link with nature.
I hope you didn't let the monkeys continue eating your maize in the farm just because you liked them. That would have gotten you in trouble. So I imagine that such an experience would plant a seed in the back of your mind to make you a conservationist without you not really noticing. But what's interesting is that after that, you now trained as a journalist and as an environmental manager. Where did this divide come? Where did you now decide I want to become a journalist? And then after I've become a journalist, now I want to actually report on environmental issues.
Yes. So when I left the village, I actually left the village to high school, to continue my high school. And from the high school, due to my love for storytelling, I decided to do journalism. Now, when I graduated from journalism, I came back home. I actually missed seeing the monkeys, seeing the chimpanzees, getting them vocalized. And so I got up the right next day in the morning. I went to the farm to see these monkeys, to enjoy what I have missed for several years. And when I got there, I didn't see the monkeys. I didn't see the chimpanzees. I was devastated. And I asked my grandmom, what happened? What about the monkeys? What about the chimpanzees? And she said they were all haunted. So I really became devastated. I became really angry. And it's at that moment that I actually decided to become a conservationist. I decided that, okay, it is time for me to use the skills I had acquired through my training as a journalist to raise awareness against the hunting of these species. It's at that point that I decided to advocate for the conservation of monkeys, conservation of chimpanzees, and conservation of their habitats. So that is where the switch from a journalist to an environmental journalist came into play. So I immediately started an environmental radio program. From the environmental radio program, I got to a TV station, and I had a special love for environmental issues. That was actually my niche. As a journalist, I started covering environmental issues until an environmental organization recruited me to work for them. And that also gave me now a bigger platform, because I wasn't just using different mainstream media and social media platform to advocate, to write stories, to raise awareness. I now had the opportunity to do it hands-on, because through the organization, I started going to forest adjacent communities, like the Libya Highlands, actually having direct contact with forest communities to educate them. I started producing short documentaries, and then the zeal for conserving these species and advocating for their conservation using journalistic tools, using multimedia tools, started increasing and kept increasing by day.
That sounds like a very tough homecoming. I can see why you got into journalism. When you were a kid, did you already know you might do that, or did you dream of doing something else?
Okay. When I grew up as a child, like every other ambitious young man, one of the key things I dreamed of becoming was a doctor. I wanted to become just so many things. Firstly, I wanted to become a lawyer, and then I was treated well by the doctor, and I said, okay, probably I should become a doctor. And along the line, I said no. I wanted to become an entrepreneur, a real businessman. So it wasn't really steady. It moved from wanting to become a lawyer to becoming a doctor, and then to becoming an entrepreneur.
So from a lawyer to a doctor to entrepreneur to now a conservationist journalist, what inspired you to become a National Geographic explorer then?
Yeah, we grew up watching a lot of wildlife. One of the key channels where we could have access to seeing wildlife was National Geographic Society. So the National Geographic channel was the key channel where we used to see wildlife. And then having lost the ability to see it in its natural habitat in my community, the only area where we could have access to really see and enjoy wildlife was National Geographic. So I used to really wonder how they used to have access to these species. In fact, it was very far away from me. I didn't believe that I was ever going to be close to the National Geographic. And so when I grew up and got later into my journey as a conservationist, and then created Voice of Nature VONAT, I started looking for grant opportunities. And I noticed that there was a call for application from National Geographic. And I was like, this is the National Geographic Society, the National Geographic channel that we have been watching. Let me just give it a try. First, I didn't believe in myself that I could become a National Geographic explorer. Truth be told, I was not sure I was ever going to make it. So firstly, I didn't do any professional training in grant writing. I wasn't very apt in doing that. So I was just trying it, just like setting a lot of traps to see which will get a catch. And I was marveled when I received the congratulations from National Geographic Society that I've been selected. And I was like, wow. So is this, am I dreaming? I didn't believe it. I didn't believe it that it was real. Everything became just so real when I went for the National Geographic Society Explorer in London in 2023, meeting the executive director of National Geographic Society herself. I was like, so dreams can be achieved. I mean, something that was very far away is now so close. I'm dining and wining with the people. So it's something that is marveling. It's something I cannot really explain how it all happened.
I think all of us who have ever received National Geographic funding or became National Geographic explorers can really relate to this, because it always does seem like something so far away, and you imagine this fantastic, larger than life characters, like some of the famous ones, and you think this couldn't be me, and then when you apply and you receive it, it's a disbelief. I know one of the many animals you're very passionate about is the Goliath frog, which not many people have heard of. How and why did it catch your attention?
Okay, as I started explaining earlier on, when I joined the Environment and Rural Development Foundation, after quitting my job as a mainstream journalist with the television channel, we were involved in carrying out conservation actions across different landscapes in Cameroon. So in 2015, I was coming back with my boss then from a conservation journey in the Libialem Highlands Conservation Complex. This is actually located in the southwest region of Cameroon. So on our way back, we actually saw these giant frogs that were sold along the highway. Growing up, like I earlier said, we only ever saw tiny frogs that were hopping around the houses. So seeing this was like seeing a real big frog that was right in front of me. So it was really heartbreaking and was really so amazing. I was like seeing a frog that is not just like tiny like the one we used to see, but a very large frog. But the disturbing part of it was that this frog wasn't in its natural habitat. It was tied to a rope along the highway, held by a hunter that was waiting for a buyer. So that moment brought back painful memories of how chimpanzees disappeared from my village in Bambalang. I immediately started asking questions, came back from the field trip during that moment. It kept recurring in my mind. I just started gathering information, learning everything I could learn. And that's when I realized that this frog wasn't just any kind of frog, but it was the world's largest frog. It was endangered. It was an iconic species. It was also an endemic species that desperately needed protection. So when I left and went to do a master's program sometime in 2015 to better equip myself to communicate effectively for nature and environment, I came back and then created Voice of Nature News. Voice of Nature News was actually created to be able to investigate and shed light on environmental challenges and key issues that needed intervention from non-profit organizations and from the Cameroon government. But when I investigated and reported on these organizations were not responding to the extent that I desired. So I asked myself, why don't I use my journalistic skills to do these investigations and then mobilize resources to go and do hands-on conservation actions? That is how Voice of Nature, VONAT, the non-profit organization, came into existence. I then decided to go back and start doing some sensitization about the Goliath frog. That was 2020. I started going back to the communities to do conservation education. But my first entry point was children. The first reason why I started with children was because I believe that they hold a key to the future sustainability of this species. Secondly, I also believe that their parents will believe more in them than a total stranger. And so that is how I got into Goliath rock conservation.
So running something like a VONAT, being an environmental activist, being a reporter, going to the field and doing all these things, that takes a toll. And I think we can all attest to as being conservationists how much work it actually is. Do you feel like you've had to give up some things along the way in order to succeed?
Absolutely, absolutely. When I started working with Voice of Nature VONAT, I first of all knew that the funding landscape was very challenging. So I actually was running the organization side by side, a way paid job, which was actually providing the resources that I could take care of my family and also take care of other exigencies for myself and for my family. So at one point in time, the organization I was working with called me and asked me to make a choice beside um, focusing and working for the organization without doing what I was doing for conservation, or letting go the juicy and well-paid job for conservation. And I told myself I can't give birth to a child and abandon it. And that is how I let go of the job and decided to focus on my conservation action. That is one very difficult choice that I had to make. At one point, my mother was, if you let go that job, I'm going to disown you. My wife was like, if you let go that job, I'm going to divorce you. And I had to make that difficult choice. Yes, I had to make that difficult choice of letting go the job to concentrate on pursuing my passion and pursuing my mission of conserving endangered species in Cameroon. That's one of the difficult choices I've had to make. And also, when I came back, other jobs opportunities were coming up with the United Nations, with World Wildlife Fund for Nature, and they were like, these are great job opportunities. Why can't you apply and stop applying for opportunities that you keep getting negative feedbacks from funders? And I was like, this is the path I have taken and there is no turning back. So these are some of the difficult choices that I've had to make. And also, the choices of abandoning your family sometime for a whole week or 2 weeks to go in a rural community where you barely have access to internet, you barely have access to electricity, and so on. So it hasn't been an easy choice. I must attest.
It really does sound like you had to make difficult choices. Do you regret making this choice, especially seeing what you risked losing?
Not at all. Not at all. I don't regret at all. I mean, one thing I told my wife, my mother, and other close relatives who felt like I was mad, who felt like there was something wrong with me, was that if you don't have a passion that is really strong, the external challenges will always suffocate your vision and your mission. I also try to convince people that the beginning is never easy, but there is nothing as satisfying as following your passion. I don't regret it. Today, I have over 500 young people that I've been able to reach out to through this organization, and you have hundreds of young graduates that have gone through our mentorship and so on. That, to me, is a lot of legacy and giving me a lot of joy. Besides this, winning the National Geographic Society was a landmark for me in my conservation journey, and being able to travel. I mean, there are countries I never thought I was going to be to. I was going to travel to, like being to Kenya about 3 times. Is for conservation and environment-related activities. Being to London for the very first time, I mean, traveling out of Africa for the first time, is also something that if I continued doing what I was doing before, I'm not sure I could ever travel and meet people of this nature. And I mean, I'm really being valuable to not just myself and my family, but I feel like I'm valuable to my community. I'm valuable to my generation. The number of mothers and grandmothers who bless me every day when I go for community work, these blessings to me, money cannot buy. So it gives me a lot of joy. It gives me a lot of satisfaction. And I tell people, money is not everything. It's being happy doing what you're doing. And I don't regret it one bit.
Earlier, you said your mother threatened to disown you and your wife threatened to leave you, but you quit your job anyhow. How did they react, and do they now understand your decision better?
initially, I tried to explain things to them, and I requested that they should be patient and believe in me, believe in my conviction, and believe in my passion. I used the past grants I have had, even while handling both opportunities, to make them know that if I focus on my passion and concentrate on it, things were going to be better. And I started having other grants, other travel opportunities, and they started getting the feedback from community members, the call I'm receiving for interviews from national and international media houses. At one point, my mother told me, "You were right, we were all wrong." Because as it stands now, we recently concluded a partnership with the Ministry of Forestry and Wildlife for the organization, and they were like, "So government even recognizes your organization, so it means we are seeing something bigger than we were seeing." And then we also had recently had the co-chair of the IUCN Amphibian Specialist Group visit our organization, and they were like, "Sorry, we have an apology to offer you. If people are leaving from China, from Brazil to come and visit the organization, it means there is something huge that we didn't see." So I think everything is fine now. They're happy that I took the decision I did. Yeah.
That's very heartwarming. I want to bring you back a bit to something you mentioned. You talked about going back to your village and seeing chimpanzees disappearing and seeing this person who had just hunted a Goliath frog and was selling it and realizing that this species is now endangered. So this, to me, these are stories of loss or stories of species disappearing. How do you cope with those moments of loss? How do you encourage yourself to continue doing what you're doing, especially at the face of such loss?
Yeah, one thing I believe is that there is always a start. There is always a start. I believe that I can be a part, instead of being a part of a problem, I can be a part of the solution. One thing that encourages me to keep going is the fact that it's my religious belief, and there is sometimes really difficult to cut that away from my conservation journey, because it gives me a lot of energy to keep going, even when some of these difficulties and challenges are coming. So while doing all of these and reading through the Bible as a Christian, I also came across a passage which shows that God created us together with nature and every other created thing, and we are supposed to be stewards, not just those who consume and destroy, but those who also consume and protect. And so the fact that I know I'm protecting what God created is also an additional energy. And I know that I'm doing this and pleasing my creator. So this gives me the extra energy to go ahead, even when all of these difficulties and the challenges and the hurt and dissatisfaction, they come into play. Secondly, I also look at the future generation. I also look at my children. Now, I was lucky enough to see the monkeys and see the chimpanzees. When my little girl, who is 1 year, 3 months today, grow up, would they be able to see a live monkey? Would they be able to see a live chimpanzee? What becomes of all of these emblematic species? And so that also gives me the extra push to work hard to make sure that these species are not destroyed, to make sure that these species are conserved. Because if my own parents and grandparents destroyed these species, I'm not sure I would have been able to even see a live chimpanzee or a live monkey in my community. So this encourages me to not just look at the challenges, but to look at the prospects that come after engaging in conservation efforts.
That's very, very encouraging, Ndimuh. So allow me to switch gears a little bit and talk about off-duty Ndimuh. You're not in the field, you're not working. What do you do to relax? What do you do to make you happy?
That's an interesting one there, Cornelius. So when I'm not in the office working, when I'm not attending workshops, or when I'm not in the field, either educating community or doing research for the Goliath frogs, for the Nigerian Cameroon chimpanzees, I mean, either watching soccer, or I'm also playing football, or I'm doing sports, or I'm in church, worshiping and praying, or I'm attending choir rehearsal because I'm also the president of a choir. We call it praise choir here in Buea, Cameroon. I'm playing with my children. They like playing with me a lot. And it gives me a lot of joy when we play together. Really funny play. Also spending time with my family, my wife and children. These are also some extra things that I do when I'm not working.
2 quick follow-up questions about it. Okay, 3. First of all, what position do you play in football? What is your favorite football team? And any good book you can recommend for me to read?
Yes. I used to play wide winger striker, call it 7-shaded player, when I was young with too much agility and could really run fast.
And speed.
With speed. So I used to play like the right wing, the striker. But now I'm putting on some weight and I'm not as energetic as fast as before. So I'm the right back player. So for the team I support, I'm a Liverpool fan, but I'm also a sympathizer of Manchester United. I also support Real Madrid. Of course, our national team, the Indomitable Lions of Cameroon. So these are the team I support.
So, sympathizer of Manchester United. As a Manchester United fan, I should take exception to this. We don't need sympathizers. So, looking ahead, it's 10 years or 5 years down the line from now. When you look at the trajectory of your career, what do you think you will be doing in 5 or 10 years' time?
In 5 or 10 years' time, I will still be a conservationist. But I think that the growth of my organization will be at another level. I should have been able to have a steady and a stable organization that is a reference point for conservation in Cameroon and in Africa. I should have been able to extend a conservation action to cover more protected area and more communities across Cameroon, reaching out to more species. I also think that we should have community protected areas for the Goliath frog. We should have facilitated the process to the extent where we have at least 3-4 rivers that are declared community protected areas in the Mount Lonako, Mwanungubai area, where we have the Goliath frog in Cameroon. I also think that in the area of primate conservation, we should have initiated the creation of a protected area for the conservation of some monkey species, especially in the west region of Cameroon. I think that we should have been able to create a network of young people for species conservation, up to about 10 different networks across the different landscapes where we are working, where they are taking independent action to conserve species. We should have also been able to facilitate the development of at least 5 community-led conservation action plans for different flagship species for the organization.
That sounds very, very ambitious, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you, Cornelius. And we pray that we'll be able to achieve all of these.
Sounds very grand plans, and you're very hopeful. Is there anything that scares you about this, or that would make you fearful about achieving these things?
Yes, the very first thing that makes me fearful about achieving these things is the funding ecosystem. It's getting more and more tricky with the unsuccessful application rates increasing by day. So one key fear I have is the availability of financial resources to be able to achieve all of this. The second fear that I have is to be able to have a team of young people that will buy this dream and be able to push it along together with me. Because alone, I cannot be able to achieve all of this. So I really need a core team of young people, and of course with other people, that we can be able to just decide that we are dedicating the next 5 years for this organization.
In closing, you've given a very good insight on who you are. And one of the things that stands out is that you really are more or less a public figure, because especially in the communities you work in. For people who don't know you personally, those people who know your public persona, who know only the work that you do, what would you want them to know about you as a person?
Well, I would like them to know that I I am a simple person who is solution-oriented. I'm also a person that feels so much for people and people's welfare. I'm also a lover of people, and of course, I'm a God-fearing person. I'm a Christian. So outside work, I'm also a family person. Married to one wife, 4 children, and no concubine.
I hope they understand this very clearly.
Yeah.
So we are trying something on our podcast as our guests sign off. We want you to give us a toast of one of your favorite toasts. Okay? Have you thought of a toast? Okay. Here is to
more funding for conservation work in Cameroon, and to Voice of Nature and community actions in Cameroon.
Here. Thank you very much, Ndimuh. It was a pleasure talking to you. I wish you all the best with your work and with your future plans, and hope to talk to you or see you soon.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on the call. Thank you so much, Gautam, for having me as one of your pioneer guests to this very important program. And I wish you all the best. And I'm always available whenever you deem necessary.
That's it for this episode of Explore This. Thanks for listening. Until next time, keep exploring.